Now, this question perfectly frames the massive paradigm shift we need to talk about. Am I antisocial or am I strategic? For decades, society has been built around this extrovert ideal. Think open concept offices, endless networking, and the cultural myth of the social deficit. This completely false idea that wanting to be alone means something is wrong with you. Well, today we're totally dismantling that narrative, because when you actually understand the mechanics of human energy, you realize that intentionally stepping away from the crowd is literally one of the most strategic moves you can make in a world that just never stops shouting.
Section 1. The biology of recharging.
To get this right, we have to fundamentally redefine introversion. Let's go all the way back to Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung's original concept. Notice how this completely detaches introversion from those lazy stereotypes about shyness or social anxiety. It's not about that at all. It's actually all about the direction of a person's energy flow. Think of your brain like a smartphone battery. Extroverts have a battery that requires them to plug into external environments. They literally draw their charge from crowds and stimulation. Introverts, on the other hand, have a battery that drains incredibly fast in those exact same environments. To recharge, they have to plug into their own quiet internal wall socket. It's just a mechanical difference.
And here is where the neurology gets super cool. Extroverts and introverts actually process the brain's reward chemicals completely differently. Extroverts have a highly active dopamine pathway. They're wired to use crowds, noise, and external novelty as a fast-acting power outlet to get that euphoric reward hit. But introverts? They rely on an entirely different neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Now, the acetylcholine pathway is much slower and way more subtle. It demands internal reflection, deep learning, sustained focus, and, this is key, absolute silence to actually activate properly. So when you're quietly reading a book or thinking deeply about a problem, your brain is just happily bathing in acetylcholine.
So the huge takeaway here is that this isn't avoidance, this is maintenance. Choosing to stay home is high-performance biological maintenance, doing exactly what your nervous system was designed to do. When you're chilling on your couch instead of shouting over a DJ at a packed bar, you aren't avoiding life. You are actively optimizing your brain.
Section 2. Calibrated observation.
Psychologist Elaine Aron's groundbreaking research on highly sensitive people, which overlaps a ton with introversion, shows us exactly how stepping out of the spotlight creates elite observation skills. Imagine you're sitting in a high-stakes boardroom negotiation. While the highly extroverted person is burning all their energy talking, pitching, and dominating the conversation, the introvert is quietly interrogating all the sensory information in the room. They're the ones catching that subtle jaw clench from the client. They hear the slight hesitation, that critical gap between the confident words being said and the anxious tone being used. They are mapping out complex social dynamics and catching fleeting micro-expressions that everyone else is simply too busy talking to notice. Because introverts treat their own minds as this silent, ongoing classroom for reviewing human behavior, they hold massive hidden leverage. Sure, the extrovert wins the room, but the introvert understands the room. And whether you're navigating corporate politics, trying to understand your partner, or making a huge investment, deep comprehension is going to outperform flashy charisma in the long game, every single time.
Section 3. Deep selective relationships.
Evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar figured out that the human neocortex only has the processing power to handle about 150 meaningful social connections at once. It's basically the size of an ancient hunter-gatherer village. If you try to maintain deep connections with more people than that, your brain just literally can't keep track of the emotional data. Introverts don't fight this hardwired biological limit. Instead, they intuitively accept it and strategically optimize for the tiniest, most critical slice of that pie. Specifically, they optimize for the number 5. 5 truly close relationships. Rather than spreading themselves painfully thin, trying to charm a room of 150 passing acquaintances, they choose relentless consistency and deep presence for a really small handful of people. They remember the minor details nobody else tracks, and they actually bother to ask the penetrating questions no one else asks. Because at the end of the day, quality is exponentially greater than noise. By investing selectively, you build nourishing, weight-bearing relationships. These are the friendships that don't just magically evaporate the second you face a crisis or lose a job. By ruthlessly optimizing for depth over breadth, introverts create this impenetrable social safety net that easily outlasts the superficial, transactional networks we see everywhere today.
Section 4. Resilience through solitude.
Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Aristotle nailed this over 2,000 years ago. And yet, our modern notification-saturated world actively works against this kind of stillness. We live in an algorithmic society that practically screams at us that silence is dangerous, that being alone is terrifying, and that any quiet moment has to be filled immediately with frantic scrolling or background audio. The modern world literally profits off our inability to just sit alone in a room.
But effective neuroscience proves that doing the inner work of solitude is absolutely critical for emotional survival. It's a process. First, you sit with your thoughts daily. Second, you start to identify your own reaction patterns and underlying fears. And third, this is where the real magic happens. You stop being surprised by yourself. Developing this profound level of emotional regulation means you can process life's inevitable setbacks with incredible composure. When you aren't surprised by your own triggers, you become incredibly difficult to manipulate, offend, or destabilize.
Section 5. Reframing the FOMO narrative. Let's talk about the fear of missing out. Data from Harvard Business School perfectly exposes the cultural highlight reel we all fall for. We constantly expect massive enjoyment from huge social events, but the actual, measured enjoyment usually ends up being much lower. On the flip side, we expect solitary events to be super boring, but the actual enjoyment turns out to be way higher than we thought. We are culturally conditioned to overestimate the fun of a loud party, conveniently forgetting the reality of shouting over terrible music, waiting 20 minutes for a drink, and faking a smile, while completely underestimating the profound restorative joy of just doing something quietly on our own. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow beautifully backs this up. He defines flow as the deepest, most satisfying state of human experience. It's that feeling where you lose all track of time, become completely absorbed in what you're doing, and just feel perfectly in the zone. And crucially, flow is almost always achieved during solitary, intensely focused activity. So staying home on a Friday night to read, code, write, or build something isn't missing out. You are actively opting into a richer, deeply satisfying human experience.
Section 6. The Strategic Advantage. Wrapping up this explainer, I want you to remember these core pillars. Your introversion is a superpower because your nervous system is working exactly as intended, sustained by rich acetylcholine maintenance. Your silence isn't shyness, it's intelligence in action, refined by calibrated observation. Your highly curated social circle provides a resilient architecture by intelligent design, and your commitment to self-knowledge builds unshakable emotional maturity.
So, the next time someone asks why you consistently choose depth over surface, or why you're spending a perfectly good evening quietly alone instead of out in the crowd, keep this undeniable truth in mind. You don't owe anyone an explanation, but if you gave one, it would simply be this: I'm not hiding from the world, I'm preparing for it.
I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Are you ready to step into the most powerful room you will ever sit in? The one where you finally meet yourself? Embrace your quiet superpower. The world desperately needs the depth, the careful observation, and the calm resilience that you bring. Step boldly into building a life on your own terms, and recognize that finding yourself in the quiet is your ultimate strategic advantage.